Taiwan! Taiwan to have a war with China? It's gonna cost you, but think of the military-industrial complex. They'll make a fortune from you. Hello there, you 6.4 million awakening wonders. Thanks for joining us on this voyage to truth and freedom and understanding and progress together and acceptance. A new world where we don't shame one another, where we embrace, hopefully, optimistically, moving forwards towards a better world, confronting difficult truths, casting aside old labels, moving together, respecting tradition and progress mutually. We got a fantastic story for you today. You know Taiwan? Oh yeah, sort of a bit. Is that where the semiconductors come from? Yeah. Semiconductors come from there. They're necessary for everything now. Well, obviously, as you're aware, the USA are beginning to subtly agitate for conflict with China over the issue of Taiwan, which they will ultimately package as some sort of humanitarian disaster where they say, we've got to stand with Taiwan. What? Don't you care about Taiwan? We care about Taiwan. Do you also care about money? Let's just make sure that this is not another one of those wars where you pretend it's a humanitarian disaster and then a bunch of people make money. Just because, you know, with that other war, you did do that. And I mean, every single other war. Of course, the mainstream media can be relied on to give us a fair and balanced perspective on a complex situation which could lead to Armageddon.
Taiwan makes their own judgments about their independence. We are not moving, we're not encouraging their being independent. That's their decision.
But would U.S. forces defend the island?
Yes, if in fact there was an unprecedented attack.
So unlike Ukraine, to be clear, sir, U.S. forces, U.S. men and women, would defend Taiwan in the event of a Chinese invasion.
Yes.
Well, firstly, as you know, there are US troops in Ukraine. They just lie about that. And when someone reveals it, they say, he's probably a pervert. Fine. Perhaps he is. Let's say he definitely is. Now, have you been lying about this war? Yeah. Like we always do. Let's get this straight then. If you thought Ukraine versus Russia was bad, and it is, particularly for the Ukrainian people, then this will be worse than that. So let's all think about this. Is that something that you want? Is that something you've been consulted about? Or do you think it's more likely that some hysteria will be whooped up? There will be a moment of jingoism and patriotism where we sort of can't think straight, that the cost of this will be economic and human and environmental, that people will die, because we are deliberately distracted from those hard truths in order that the military-industrial complex can profit. As you know, the American financial model requires war in order to survive. That's a simple, plain fact. And do you know where the money comes from? You. It comes from actual you. That's why the mainstream media have to report on this like it's a program for idiots, because as you know, an idiot is what they think you are.
President Biden last fall saying for the first time that if China invades Taiwan, the U.S. would send troops to defend it.
When was that in the election pledge, by the way, when we were talking about, you know, oh, bloody Donald Trump, let's make sure that people are able to be who they are, stuff I actually obviously agree with. And also, we'll probably try and find a way to have a war with China and all. They didn't say that, did they? Oh, we had no idea. Did you, though?
It's an invasion many experts predict could happen in this decade.
Woohoo! While my children are still young.
We got a fascinating inside look this week.
Oh, yeah, it's fascinating this. I love a good look at how we're going to march our people into war. And could you tell us who's going to pay for it, by the way? Who's going to pay for it? Because I see that we're not getting to vote for it. That's fine. You decide. You're so much better and cleverer than us. But when it comes to the money, where's the money going to come from?
At how members on the House China Committee are gaming out war scenarios.
Because it is a game. War with China. Oh, this is a bit of fun. How about this little game where you chop off your own hand and eat it? Oh, this is brilliant. Oh, it tastes like chicken.
In the sky, on the sea, China staging combat exercises.
Bloody China staging combat exercises. It's almost as if they feel under some sort of external pressure. Almost as if there's an aggressive nation building military bases all around them or something. Something like that. No, it's probably not that. It's probably just bloody China. They're different from us. They hate their own kids. They're monsters.
A show of force, a warning that a potential blockade of Taiwan could be coming. The Chinese army even releasing this simulation of how they'd attack the nearby island.
Oh, releasing a simulation. That's much worse than actually encircling a country with real life, not a simulation, missile bases.
A self-governed democracy that China claims as its own territory.
We love democracy. Stop claiming other places as yours. And don't make a comparison like saying that the deal that Zelensky's made with BlackRock means that ultimately apparently in a peculiar way it's being economically colonized and new opportunities for globalist corporations amounts to a type of colonization. That's totally different. Look at China. Boo! Boo! Different than us!
But on Capitol Hill this week, lawmakers staged their own simulation.
The whole thing's a bloody simulation, a simulation of democracy.
It's certainly not about playing frivolous games.
No, not playing frivolous games, not with your life and your tax dollars. Or is it?
China Committee Chairman Mike Gallagher and Ranking Member Raja Krishnamurthy set up the exercise with the Center for New American Security.
This game is going to be a Chinese invasion of Taiwan set in 2027.
What I don't like about this is that these things have a tendency to actually happen. Let me know in the chat in the comments how many times you've noticed, oh, what would happen if there was a pandemic? What would happen if China invaded Taiwan?
What exactly do we know right now about their mobilization effort?
Members from both sides of the aisle coming together, politics set aside.
Oh, peace and harmony to come together for a profitable war. Have you noticed that when it comes to matters of domestic progress, they are always mired in intransigent muddles? Oh, we can't get this through. Oh, that bill got blocked. When it comes to helping people or making America a better place, suddenly there's a war on the horizon. Let's go! Everyone's together. That's not like skipping through the meadows holding hands, I'd like to buy the world a Coke. That's corruption. That's because both sides are funded by the military-industrial complex. Both sides know that war is good for business. The business of America requires war. This is war. War with China that you're paying for.
There's Virginia Republican Robert Whitman and Massachusetts Democrat Jake Auchincloss.
One day, people will come together, Republicans and Democrats, to have a war with China. Oh yes, I have a dream.
The members taking on the role of advisors to the president.
What have we communicated to expats and students from China right now?
This is part of what you get to decide.
That's Stacey Pettijohn, a senior fellow from CNAS.
It is a bit of a frivolous game with like people being called Games Master. Why don't they wear like Dungeons and Dragons outfits and stuff like that? Oh no, my orc's been kicked in the nutbag by your wizard boy. Oh, come on now. Gotta roll a couple of sixes. Those trolls are real sons of bitches. I mean the Chinese.
Acting as the game master.
Now remember, this is not a frivolous game. Now let's all decide who we're gonna be. I'm gonna be a dwarf. I should be a giant. And I'm gonna be Lockheed Martin. Good decision.
Retired General Mike Holmes is playing the role of chairman of the Joint Chiefs, laying out to members what military options there are. After debating how the U.S. should react, lawmakers took a vote, announcing their move.
Oh, which way will it go? Which one will it go? Should we consult the American people? Do they want to spend $1,000 each on another potentially unnecessary war? What will democracy deliver now? It's a nail-biter.
We will be standing with our friends in Taiwan. We have forces in the region.
Gotta stand with Taiwan. Oh, you're not standing with Taiwan? Don't you care about Taiwan? You traitor, you dirty traitor. No, it's just us wondering if anyone's gonna make any... what you said there, that's against Taiwan. Did you hear that? I bet you're also probably racist, are you? And a homophobe. Because that's what it is if you don't like Taiwan. Quick, get the money, get the money!
That our preposition, we're surging forces in the region.
Surging forces? This is not meant to be a frivolous game. Surging forces, people pretending to be generals, games masters, orcs. I added the orcs.
We are also prepared to impose maximum economic pressure in the event of an invasion, including sanctions against most major Chinese banks.
Also, why are they bothering to have this stupid Dungeons and Dragons but actual wars when what they're basically doing is exactly what they did with the Ukraine-Russia conflict? Well, we'll start off with sanctions, then we'll impose NATO pressure, and then we'll make a load of money. But also this time we get to have a neat little game. I'm gonna wear a robe. I've got a scepter.
But wait a minute. Chinese authorities, played by CNAS staffers, quickly counter, surging troops, forcing a communications blackout in Taiwan, and banning exports of electronic goods to the U.S.
So that means we are going after companies like Apple, Dell, HP. You want a new iPhone? Guess what? You're not going to get it.
She's really committed to the part of Chinese baddie. You want a new Apple iPhone? Well, guess what? You're not going to get it. Yeah, I'm not actually as worried about my iPhone as I'm worried about a nuclear missile striking the American mainland. Well, good luck taking a selfie of you with that mushroom cloud because you're not going to get it. And you won't be printing it out on a Dell printer, neither, because we're stopping all of that. I love this game.
Lots of questions, lots of lessons.
It was remarkable to see all of you there working together.
Yeah, it's lovely, isn't it, really? I mean, people talk about politicians and how we're just in it for ourselves. We're just selfish, profiteering pigs who primarily care about what we're going to do after we leave Congress. And as isn't the case in 1 in 5 Congress people trading in stocks and shares that we regulate, but you just give us the task of practicing a war that's going to drain the American people and potentially damage the lives of everyone on the globe. And look at us come together as a team. I promised myself I wouldn't cry.
It's not a view we often get. We see you in hearings, we see you on TV, but this is a group that is really working together.
We're trying to. And again, ultimately, we're hoping to generate creative ideas that can pass this Congress for what we can do to enhance deterrence.
What that basically is, that's someone who's on the Select Committee for Policy on China saying that they'll agitate for war. This is that stuff you always see, right? Like this guy, you think he don't get lobbying money from Raytheon, Lockheed Martin, Northrop Grumman? So in the event that you were to do a war game, Mike Gallagher, representative of Wisconsin, would you say that there should be a war? And let me remind you, wars are those things where we sell military equipment. I don't know, would I say that there shouldn't be a war because it would cost American taxpayers a lot of money and like a war is a bad thing? No, Mike. You say there will be a war. Oh, I get it now. I say there will be a war. Now get out there, onto that Congress Select Committee, and represent the American people. And see if you can get along with those Democrats. You guys are so different.
Our hope is by doing something different, we generate more member engagement and more member ideas.
There's obviously lessons learned from Ukraine.
We all made a fucking fortune. And the only people that died were Ukrainian, and I ain't Ukrainian. So sad, but
One of them was the U.S. intelligence certainly believed Russia would be moving in.
Yeah.
But really off the mark in terms of the power of Russia and the power of the troops. Do you trust the intelligence on this one, Congressman?
yeah, no one could have predicted that Russia are good at wars. Russia always are good at wars. Have you heard of this little thing called history?
I trust the intelligence community and their assessment right now.
Why wouldn't you? There's nothing about the intelligence community not to trust. Like the CIA, recent revelations or historic revelations or agitating for wars, potentially causing coups that lead to wars. Gotta trust those guys, right?
I think you have to just prepare for the worst and hope for the best. I think that's just the way that we have to approach this scenario.
Yeah, well, that's actually something you could get off a Christmas cracker or out of, ironically, a Chinese fortune cookie, although they'll probably be banned any day soon. But hope for the best, prepare for the worst. That's what you learned from your war games. This isn't like, what to do going on holiday with someone you don't get on with that well anymore. This is a potential global conflict. Well, Stitch in Time saves 9, Red Sky at night, Shepherd's Delight. Oh, good. That'll help us when missiles start landing in Delaware and Wisconsin. Good luck talking to the people that voted you in.
And that is what they are doing.
And that's what they're doing. That's the news. And that is what they're doing. That over there, what I just showed you. Thanks for watching. Okay, let's get some more details on this crazy crackpot world. Washington, we're incessantly told, is paralysed by a climate of brinkmanship and polarisation. That has indeed been the case in many areas over the past few years. When it comes to defence spending, however, none of the usual rules of politics seem to apply. Yeah, it's because they have rehearsals in collaborating when it comes to enacting the will of the military-industrial complex. We just saw them rehearsing. Though unable to find common ground elsewhere, Democratic and Republican lawmakers invariably forget their differences whenever the Pentagon is involved. Despite preaching fiscal restraint on social expenditure, the economic conservatives who dominate both parties have never met a military budget they consider too large or demanded that cruise missiles be subject to a work requirement before they vote yay. Yes, it's interesting, isn't it? When it comes to distribution of resources domestically, like healthcare or education, no, that's communism. But it's your exact same money that's going to the military-industrial complex. That's sound business. This is very reliable. 50% of all military spending ends up not with the military, not with the troops, not with the brave men and women that fight for America, that are willing to lay down their lives. Raytheon, Lockheed Martin, Boeing, those guys. As Stephen Semler of the Security Policy Reform Institute put it back in 2021, roll call votes on military spending reveal that there are considerably fewer deficit hawks or fiscal conservatives in Congress than reported by mainstream media outlets, if any at all. The Pentagon's government's bloated and ever-expanding budget undermines American democracy, not only because it never receives the same scrutiny as other government spending. I wonder why that is. Let me know in the chat and the comments if there could be a reason for that. Why do they keep failing audits? Why do both parties vote in line with more military expenditure? We saw it with Ukraine, and we've just seen from the rehearsals that you're going to see the same thing in next World War. But because it ultimately funnels so much money away from essential and social public goods, as a new report released by the Institute for Policy Studies, IPS, makes vividly clear. Published annually on Tax Day in collaboration with the National Priorities Project, the Institute's analysis examines American income taxes in relation to military and security spending to show just how much of the average person's tax bill is going to the likes of cluster bombs rather than hospitals or schools. Its findings are staggering. This year, the average American taxpayer paid $1,087 just for Pentagon contractors alone, a sum representing 21 days of work for the average person and 4 times what they contributed to K-12 education. That's $270. Isn't it interesting that our attention is continually drawn to cutbacks in education and healthcare, but every single one of you, or at least the average taxpayer, paid over $1,000 directly to the military-industrial complex, working on average 21 days for the military-industrial complex. Bear that in mind on those 21 days, particularly if you're doing a job that you're not enjoying. Let me know in the chat and the comments, like, oh, it's good that I'm doing this for Raytheon and Lockheed Martin. Does that seem right to you? Does that seem fair? Does it seem like it's something you should be consulted about and asked about? Or do you trust your government enough to allow them to make that decision with your money for you? They also paid approximately $74 for the maintenance of nuclear weapons. An average taxpayer gave $298 to the 5 largest military contractors, while only $19 went to programs concerned with mental health and substance abuse. Mental health and substance abuse, even if you're not directly affected by it, will affect your community. It will affect your life. Even if it's not a member of your family or you yourself, you're living in an environment where people are sick and addicted to drugs, in part because of how miserable and desperate the world is, but also because the resources are being directed elsewhere. A significant number of the people that are suffering from addiction issues are suffering because of the opioid crisis, and you know who caused that. It's been legally proven that it was caused by the pharmaceutical industry. And guess what? They got a whole bunch of your tax dollars. Other people suffering from mental health problems will be war veterans from wars caused by, oh, guess what? These people. You're funding the decline of your own communities, and no one's asking you whether or not that's what you want. Let me know in the chat and comments how you feel about that. Lockheed Martin, incidentally a major air polluter, received $106 from the average person's income tax contribution, while a mere $6 went to renewable energy. $106 for Lockheed Martin from all of us. I don't know about that, man. I don't know if that's what I want. As part of the study, the IPS also offers an interactive tool showing how money currently going to the military might otherwise be spent. These results are also staggering. For just 10% of what America spent on militarization in 2021, it could have funded 660,631 registered nurses, aside from the 666. I love that. Registered nurses instead of missiles. This is the world we live in. This is the world we live in. We can make it different. We can change it. 8.8 million units of public housing. How are you getting on? Can you afford your housing? Is your rent high? Can you afford to get on the property ladder? Or are major organisations buying up all the property in your country? Do you feel the Lockheed Martin money? Is it like, oh, there it goes. I'm glad I worked those 21 days. Let me know how this system's treating you. This system that doesn't allow you to vote for it, and when it does allow you to vote, just does what it wants, because as you just saw in that exercise, both parties, when it comes to the crunch, are going to do exactly the same thing. Or 1.69 million jobs paying $15 per hour with benefits for an entire year. But people talk a lot about Roosevelt's New Deal, where people that weren't working went to work in national parks, building the America that you love. What kind of America do you want for the next generation? One where people are building community assets, or one where everyone's in a mad war with China in 2027, which ain't that far off. Thank God Watch couldn't get the semiconductors. A mere 1% could have salaried approximately 81,000 elementary school teachers over the next 12 months. Faced with numbers like these, it's hard to not think about the more generous and humane society that might exist if the institutions of America's government were less captured by the military-industrial complex. The United States currently spends more on its military than the next 49 countries combined, the majority of which are allies. Yeah, but they could turn against us at any time. A big gang of 9. So let's spend more of that and give it to Raytheon, etc. And then we'll have wars with those once we've done China and Russia. Brilliant. I'd like to see them war game that out. Oh yeah? Then where are you going to get your croissants from? And your red wine? Or your steak and kidney pies from the UK? Or your bratwursts from Germany? We actually don't need any of that stuff. And even a 10% cut to its military budget would leave it far ahead of all other countries in total military expenditure. Wow. Since the late 1970s, American politics have been dominated by a strand of fiscal conservatism that views taxes as evil and the state as a quasi-illegitimate body that skims from the wealth ordinary citizens earn. There are many problems with this argument, but it's especially difficult to take it seriously given that its proponents always seem to exclude military spending from the equation. This is an important point. If that argument is robust, if that argument is sound, then it has to apply to military expenditure. I recognize the security of America is a significant subject for many of you. But remember, where is this money going really? Because if it was really going to the troops, who I'm sure we all support, why are they in significant numbers unable to afford food, shelter, and why are 11% of all homeless people in America veterans? Let me know in the chat in the comments. Considering how little scrutiny such spending receives, and considering that it continues to increase regardless of who's in power, ordinary Americans are effectively being forced to subsidize a bloated military bureaucracy to the tune of hundreds of billions every year, all while having zero say in the matter. NPP's analysis comes just over a month after the White House released President Joe Biden's $1.6 trillion budget request for the fiscal year of 2024. More than half of that amount, $886 billion, would go to the military. Responding to the $886 billion request, NPP Program Director Lindsay Koshgarian said last month that this military budget represents a shameful status quo that the country can no longer afford. Families are struggling to afford basics like housing, food and medicine, and our last pandemic era protections are ending, all while Pentagon contractors pay their CEOs millions straight from the public treasury, Koshgarian noted. A responsible budget would restore the Pentagon's spending to previous reduced levels from just a few short years ago and reinvest that additional money at home where we need it the most, she added. So there you are. The Democrats and the Republicans are coming together to rehearse a war with Taiwan that will cost you a lot of money and gain the military-industrial complex even more of your money. You're already paying them over $1,000 a year. Wouldn't you like to vote on where that money goes? Wouldn't you like to hear alternative arguments for how that money could be spent? Wouldn't you like to be in control of your own communities and lives, having decentralized democracies that are local to you, where you could have pride and meaning in your community, letting go of how other people want to run their communities, because let's face it, it's not our business how other people live if it doesn't affect us, is it? But what is our business? What is your money? Is the way that the military-industrial complex is continually agitating for conflict in order to spend your tax dollars on wars abroad that, it could be argued, are nothing to do with you and wouldn't even be happening without their agenda being imposed on your nation. But that's just what I think. Let me know what you think in the comments and the chat. Remember, subscribe and turn on the notification bell. Otherwise, the algorithm will send you off to CNN or Fox or MSNBC or some other junkyard of the mind. And if you enjoyed this video, have a look at either of these. More important than any of that, though, is that you please stay free.